Hey guys, welcome back to Mana Down Under. Today we're covering, now is it Muldrotha or Muldrotha? Don't know which one. The Gravetide. 6 mana, she's 1 green, 1 black, 1 blue, 3 generic, legendary creature elemental avatar, but here's a big kicker. During each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. Now during spoiler season I looked at the card map. That's cool, good colours, it's very interactive, there's going to be some fun decks around it. But it wasn't until I really looked into the card and combos, I didn't realize how fucked she really is. So, this isn't a deck tech by any means, it's just card ideas and synergies. When I was looking into the card, there's a lot of different ways to build around her. Some people are going tribal, some people are going token based, some people are just doing constant recurrence. I've seen like upside down library matters kind of deck. So, but as you can see in my clickbait title, there's, in theory with her, you can have multiple commanders running and pay no commander tax, but keep them accessible to you. So let's take Skullbriar for example, the Walking Grave. He gains counters from hitting your opponent, he's got haste, but he never loses his counters. They stay on him no matter what zone he moves into. Whether that be the exile, the graveyard, or battlefield. If he goes to your hand or library, he will lose them. But you could do combat with him, lose him on the board, you target him for recast through Muldrotha. He's still there with the counters and can keep gaining value. Merrin Clan Neltoth, one of the most popular commanders right now, I think top 10. Whenever a creature dies, you as a player get the experience counter, which stay on you for the rest of the game. Merrin can go to the graveyard, or if you use your solo commander, to the command zone. But with Muldrotha, you target her as your creature permanent and resurrect her, recast her. And then end of turn, Merrin will possibly resurrect another creature, maybe Skullbriar. So as long as you can draw or tutor for these commanders, you can keep using them. It's like having like 5 commanders in one deck that are fully accessible and they can combine together. The same is true for Gerard and the Gitrog monster. Gerard gets very big for each creature in your graveyard, and you can sacrifice creatures to hemorrhage everyone. Now with Gerard, you could sacrifice Skullbriar and recast Skullbriar, sacrifice him again. You could start to really hemorrhage people. The Gitrog monster lets you draws cards and replay extra lands. With Muldrotha, you can target lands in your graveyard as your permanent type to replay. See what I'm on about here? You can keep playing these commanders as long as you can find them, and you never have to pay command attacks on them. And this is true for Muldrotha. We'll get to that in a little bit later on. Now here are some cards which are just big value town. They're not synergistic by any means in the graveyard, but they give the deck a lot of value. Jin-Gitaxias lets you draw a lot. What's that you have to discard? Oh well, you will just recast what you discard anyway. Sheldred helps your resurrection game plan and put pressure on your opponent. I don't have the green Praetor of Vernoclaxia because I don't feel he's very fair anymore. I used to run him when I was a bit more tryhard in 1v1, but it's not fun for the opponent. I can see playing people or my friends, they're not having fun, so he's not here anymore. Sidisi can either exploit another creature or herself. She counts as a permanent, so in a way she's a 5 mana permanent tutor that you can keep recasting if you want to. Solemn, if you can keep casting and getting him dead, constant value there. More drawing and more land. Eternal Witness and Skullwinder support the pulling out the graveyard and recasting plan. Glenn and Sporefrog help lock down the board. Glenn, you can keep recurring to counter non-creature spells, especially against like the red-blue decks. And Sporefrog, if you choose him as your creature permanent, you can keep fogging the board every turn. By the way, I love his artwork. Don't know why, but it's very cute. Muldrotha, you can keep evoking, because it's still a permanent type, but you can choose to pay alternate or additional costs. So Muldrotha evoke, keep evoking, evoking, evoking. Burnished Heart just lets you dig your lands out your deck quicker. Phyrexian Metamorph is a powerhouse in this deck, because it can copy your board, or their board, any artifact or creature. But in terms of Muldrotha, you can target it as your artifact or creature, so it lets you double up on a turn. Tribe Elder, like Heart, lets you dig further out your deck. Rex Sage and Caustic Caterpillar help you really hate on the artifact or enchantment decks in the board. Oracle of Dire will support the land matter in the deck. The deck is very land focused because of the way lands are a permanent type, especially fetch lands, so it helps you ramp and thin your deck very quickly. Baleful Strix is a 2-mana insta-kill blocker and a draw spell. That's very good in this deck if you can keep casting it. And again, it's an artifact or a creature, you can choose your type. Acidic Slime lets you start hating on their lands, as well as artifact and enchantment, which could win you a game, depending on who you verse him. Birds of Paradise does help, because you are triple color, and it's a little bit extra ramp. Enchantments in this deck are another permanent type you can resurrect. Exploration is pretty much going to have constant value in the game. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. So you play from your hand, or you can play double from your graveyard, if you have the ability to play from your graveyard. Journey to Eternity lets you resurrect additional creatures 5 mana if you can flip it. With Muldrotha, you can be resurrecting 2 creatures a turn, but then this is true with Animate Dead. So with Muldrotha, you can target for your creature, any creature, recast it, and then you target Animate Dead as your enchantment permanent. Then Animate Dead enters the board, and you recast, well, it resurrects another creature. So that's your 2 for 1 in a turn. Attrition lets you fight any board with a very good creature base, because you're just going to sack a creature and resurrect it. You lose Attrition or Animate Dead, oh well, Muldrotha can target them and resurrect those cards. Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora. Now I've got them in here because the deck will need a lot of draw. The deck is very active and it's doing things constantly. Rhystic Study often gets blown up on the board because people hate the card, but if you can keep recasting Rhystic Study, people are going to give up and just leave it. Same thing for Mystic Remora. You can actually even avoid the upkeep cost if you want, and you can just sacrifice it and replay it for 1 mana. Pernicious Deed is a very powerful card here. It's a recurring board wipe, which you can choose what to set it at. And the same is true for Oblivion Stone, which I haven't got here, but you can do the same for that. Secrets of the Dead. Every time you're playing from your graveyard, you get to draw a card. In the nature of this deck, you're probably playing from your graveyard 60% of the time from the mid to late game. So this is going to be a very good draw spell. You can Mindslaver lock someone. So in 1v1, if you can get Mindslaver, they're done for. Nihil Spellbomb is very good in this deck because you can keep recurring it. It becomes a 1 mana Bajuka Bog. You can just remove people's graveyards, which is also your weakness. If people can remove your graveyard or reshuffle it back into your library or exile it, you're greatly hindered. You need a graveyard to function well in this deck. Skull Clamp lets you draw further, supports the resurrecting and killing plan. I've got Expedition Map here instead of the Bauble because it lets you fetch any land, which in this deck you want fetch lands because that will play into it. Planeswalkers are a permanent type again, but I wasn't really sure what Planeswalkers support the deck well. You could go Karn and Ugin, they are just very powerful cards in general. But in terms of complementary cards, I think Liliana's pretty good. You could go either Liliana, the Veil, if you have the money, because the discard side effect doesn't really impact you because you can discard something and then recast it through Muldrotha anyway. But Liliana the Last Hope is good because of the self-mill and returning creatures to your hand. I've got Garruk here because I think he's a bit underplayed in Commander. He is 7 mana, but he can kill other Planeswalkers, insta-kill blockers, and he can remove any creature. It's a pretty good Planeswalker. Now the deck, by design, wouldn't run too many Instant or Sorcery because it won't be able to recur them, so they're a one-off trick. So they have to be very impactful for the deck. So Buried Alive, 3 mana, you can get any 3 creatures from your deck into your graveyard instantly. In this deck, that's very good. You can get any of your big scary things you need, or your lockdown pieces like Spore Frog early on. Life from Loam this one's an exception because you keep recurring it through Dredge. This will further support your land, ramp you further. Gerard's Orders is normally it's a tutor spell where you get 1 card and you lose 1 card. In this deck, you get both the cards. You just choose which one goes to your hand first. And in this deck, a lot of people go Filth as one to the graveyard because you could run Eurobog, make everything a swamp. So that's another idea. Grave Pact will put a lot of pressure on your opponents because you are manipulating the board in the graveyard so often, you're losing a lot of creatures, so will they. Victimize is very fun in this deck, I can see. Sacking 1 creature to resurrect 2. Seems good. Now your lands. Because lands are, again, a permanent type you can target. Muldrotha will want probably to target your fetch lands, because you can target the fetch land, play it, sacrifice it, and then you're going to fetch out any fetchable land out your deck. So you're thinning your deck and ramping yourself. Now this is where exploration and things like that came into. You can further play more lands, get them going quicker. A lot of people will probably run Crucible of Worlds, play the lands from your graveyard, or the Raminant, what was it? From Amonkhet, the little snake dude that can let you play lands from the graveyard. So you want all your fetches and all your fetchables in your colour. Cycle lands are pretty good in this deck because they're a further mean of draw and just normal land. But probably the best land in this deck, which avoids all command attacks together, will be Command Beacon. Now this commander did make Command Beacon spike up to nearly $40, but that's for good reason. With Muldrotha, you play Muldrotha, you have Command Beacon. Muldrotha dies, you sacrifice Command Beacon, return it to your hand, and play it for 6 mana. Muldrotha comes back into play, you choose on your main phase, Command Beacon as your land permanent for the turn. You replay Command Beacon. You can keep targeting it as your land, and never have to pay command tax ever. They would have to actively exile that land to stop your command tax. And who exiles lands their commander? Not too many people. So in theory, you never pay commander tax again. So you can see why I'm starting to think Muldrotha will be very meta shaping for commander players. She can run multiple commanders, and you'll never have to worry about commander tax. And the synergy in just recurring everything is so good. So remember, this is only deck ideas. There's so many different ways to take this deck. A lot of people going tribal counters, upside down library. You can do it how you want. But I'm just putting some cards out there to see what people think. So let me know what you guys think of Muldrotha. I'm excited. I can't wait to actually get a foil copy of her. And maybe the pre-release one, I don't know. But I want to get her and I'm going to start building her. So let me know what you think. Alright, have a good one. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to like and sub, and have a good one.